Tejo stood in the grand hall of the Galactic Council space station and tried not to look nervous. The ceiling stretched so high above him that he could barely see it. Lights from 1,000 different worlds sparkled like stars. He had dreamed of this moment his entire life. Humanity was finally meeting the great civilizations of the galaxy. The doors opened with a sound like singing crystal. Princess Yura of the Valerian Empire walked in, and Tejo forgot to breathe. She was tall, taller than any human, with skin that shimmered like moonlight on water. Her eyes were large and golden, with no visible pupils. She wore robes that seemed to flow like liquid silver. Behind her came a dozen attendants, all equally beautiful and strange. Tejo bowed as he had practiced. "Your Highness, welcome. I am Tejo, ambassador from Earth." Yura smiled, and her whole face glowed softly. "Ambassador Tejo, I have studied your language for 3 cycles. I hope my speaking is acceptable." "Your speaking is perfect," Tejo said, relieved. Behind him, his colleague Jiho stood at attention in his security uniform. Nari, the medical officer, waited nearby with her tablet ready. The welcoming ceremony was beautiful. The Valerians sang in harmonies that made Tejo's chest vibrate. Humans offered gifts from Earth, a tiger lily in preserved crystal, recordings of ocean waves, a piece of music by Bach. Yura received each gift with wonder, touching them gently with her long fingers. After the ceremony, there was a dinner. The Galactic Council had prepared food that humans could eat, though it looked nothing like food from Earth. Tejo sat next to Princess Yura at the long table. She asked him questions about everything. How long did humans live? What was Earth's sun like? How many nations existed on the human homeworld? Tejo answered as best he could. He was a biologist before becoming an ambassador, so he enjoyed explaining things. Yura listened to every word with intense focus. Her golden eyes never left his face. Then she asked the question that changed everything. "Ambassador Tejo," Yura said, setting down her eating implement, "I have observed your delegation carefully. I noticed that humans come in 2 distinct variations. Some are built like you, broader shoulders, more facial hair, deeper voices. Others, like Officer Nari there, have different proportions, different vocal qualities. Yet you all call yourselves human. Are these different subspecies? Different castes? I cannot detect any difference in intelligence or capability." Tejo felt his face grow warm. He glanced at Jiho, who suddenly found his plate very interesting. Nari was trying not to smile. "Ah," Tejo said. "That is, well, those are not subspecies, Your Highness. Those are biological sexes, male and female. I am male. Nari is female." Yura's glow brightened with interest. "Sexes? This is a reproduction category, yes? I have read about this in some species. But surely humans do not... You are an advanced civilization. You must have moved beyond biological reproduction." "No, Your Highness," Tejo said carefully. "Humans still reproduce biologically. Male and female humans are both necessary for reproduction." Yura stared at him. Around the table, other Valerians had stopped eating. They were all listening now. "Both?" Yura said slowly. "You require 2 individuals to create offspring?" "Yes, Your Highness." "And this process, it is physical, not mental or spiritual?" Tejo's face was definitely red now. "It is physical, yes." Yura sat back in her chair. She looked at her attendants, who looked back at her with expressions Tejo could not read. The Valerians began speaking to each other in their own language, their voices rising and falling like music. Finally, Yura turned back to Tejo. "Forgive me, Ambassador, this is unexpected. Valerians reproduce through what you might call neural bonding. 2 or more Valerians link their minds in meditation. Our bodies then undergo cellular division. A new Valerian grows from the combined essence of the parents. It takes only a few hours." The new child is born with basic knowledge already in their mind. That sounds very efficient, Taiho said weakly. But humans, Yura continued, leaning forward, you must physically combine. How does this work? Where does the offspring grow? How long does it take? Taiho looked desperately at Nari. She took pity on him and came to the table. Your Highness, Nari said, human reproduction is quite complex. Perhaps this is not the best setting to discuss it. On the contrary, Yura said, standing up, this is clearly a crucial aspect of human biology and culture. I must understand it to properly establish diplomatic relations. Ambassador Taiho, I request a full scientific briefing on human reproduction. Would tomorrow be acceptable? Taiho wanted to say no. He wanted to explain that humans did not usually discuss this topic at formal dinners with alien princesses they had just met. But Yura's face was so earnest, so genuinely curious, that he could not refuse. Tomorrow would be acceptable, Your Highness, he heard himself say. Yura's glow brightened with pleasure. Excellent. I will bring my science advisor and medical staff. This will be a wonderful learning opportunity. I am so grateful, Ambassador Taiho. You humans are endlessly fascinating. After the Valerians left, Jiho came over to Taiho and put a hand on his shoulder. My friend, he said, you have just made a terrible mistake. I know, Taiho said, dropping his head into his hands. Nari was already typing on her tablet. I will prepare a presentation, she said. We will keep it scientific and professional. How bad could it be? She is going to bring her entire science team, Taiho said, to learn about human sex. Not sex, Nari corrected. Reproduction. There is a difference. I do not think Princess Yura will see a difference, Taiho said. That night, Taiho could not sleep. He lay in his quarters on the space station and stared at the ceiling. Through his window, he could see Earth in the distance, a blue and white marble in the darkness. His home seemed very far away. He thought about Princess Yura's innocent curiosity. The Valerians were one of the most powerful civilizations in the galaxy. They controlled hundreds of star systems. They had technology that seemed like magic to humans. And they reproduced by thinking really hard and then dividing like cells under a microscope. How was he supposed to explain to them that humans had to... Well, he could not even think about it without feeling embarrassed. But he was an ambassador. This was his job. Humanity needed allies in this vast galaxy. If Princess Yura wanted to learn about human biology, he would teach her, even if it killed him of embarrassment first. Taiho finally fell asleep as the station's artificial dawn began to brighten his windows. In his dreams, he was back in his university biology classroom giving a lecture, but when he looked at his students, they were all alien princesses with glowing golden eyes, staring at him and waiting for answers. The conference room was too small. Taiho realized this the moment Princess Yura arrived with her entourage. She had not brought just her science advisor. She had brought 12 Valerian scholars, 3 medical specialists, a royal recorder, and 2 members of the Galactic Council who happened to be curious. I hope you do not mind, Yura said cheerfully as her people filed into the room. Word spread about your briefing. Everyone wants to learn. Taiho smiled weakly. Beside him, Nari was setting up a holographic projector. Jiho stood by the door, looking like he wanted to be anywhere else in the galaxy. Let us begin, Yura said, settling into her seat. All the Valerians leaned forward with identical expressions of fascination. The 2 council members, one a floating blob of blue gel, the other a crystalline insect creature, also focused their attention on Taiho. Taiho cleared his throat. Thank you all for coming. Today we will discuss human reproductive biology. I will keep this scientific and educational. Of course, Yura said. Please be thorough. Leave nothing out. Nari activated the projector. A human body appeared in the air, rotating slowly. Humans are a sexually dimorphic species, she began. This means we have two distinct biological forms, male and female. These differences are determined by chromosomes at the moment of conception. Conception? One of the Valerian scholars asked. The beginning of a new life, Nari explained. She brought up an image of human cells. This is a male reproductive cell called sperm. This is a female reproductive cell called an ovum or egg. When these two cells combine, they create a new organism with genetic material from both parents. The room was completely silent. The Valerians were staring at the hologram with wide eyes. Wait, Yura said slowly. You are saying that humans create specialized cells, and these cells must physically meet? Yes, Your Highness, Taiho said. How do the cells meet? This was the moment Taiho had been dreading. Through a physical process called sexual intercourse. The male and female humans must be in close physical contact. The male transfers sperm cells into the female's body, where they travel to find an egg cell. One of the Valerian medical specialists made a sound like a musical gasp. Into the body? The cells go inside? Yes, Nari said, keeping her voice professional. The female reproductive system is internal. Once fertilization occurs, the developing embryo implants in an organ called the uterus. And then it is extracted for external gestation? The crystalline council member asked hopefully. No, Taiho said. The embryo remains inside the female's body for approximately 9 months. It grows there, taking nutrients from the mother's bloodstream. Then, when it is ready, the baby is born through a process called labor. 9 months? Yura stood up from her chair. The offspring grows inside the parent's body for 9 months? Yes, Your Highness. But that must be dangerous. What if something goes wrong? What if the parent needs to run or fight? Those are all risks, Nari admitted. Historically, many human females died during pregnancy or childbirth. Even now, with our best medical technology, there are complications. The process puts tremendous strain on the parent's body. The Valerian science advisor, an elderly male with silver skin, suddenly stood up and walked out of the room. They could hear him making distressed sounds in the hallway. Forgive him, Yura said faintly. This is very shocking. You are telling me that half of your species must risk death to create the next generation? In a way, yes, Taiho said. Yura sat back down slowly. She looked at Nari with something like awe. You are female. You could carry life inside you? I could, yes, Nari said. Many human females choose to do so. Some do not. We have options now. Choose? The blue gel council member rippled with confusion. Why would anyone choose such danger? Because humans want children, Taiho explained. Family is important to us. Parents love their children even before they are born. Love, Yura repeated softly. She had heard this word from Taiho, but had not fully understood it. You have mentioned this emotion before. It is hard to explain to species who do not reproduce as we do, Taiho said. But yes, love is a powerful human emotion. It connects parent to child, mate to mate. Yura looked at her advisor, who had returned to the room but looked shaken. She spoke to him in Valerian. He responded, gesturing at the hologram. They talked for several minutes while the humans waited. Finally, Yura turned back to Taiho. I must ask a question that may seem personal. You said the male and female must be in physical contact for reproduction. How long does this contact last? Taiho felt his face burning. It varies. Generally a few minutes to perhaps an hour, depending on the individuals. Every Valerian in the room lit up like stars. Their glow was so bright that Taiho had to squint. Minutes? Yura's voice was higher than normal. You remain physically connected for minutes, in a vulnerable state? Well, yes, Taeho said. It is not usually considered vulnerable. It is supposed to be pleasant, enjoyable. It is an act of intimacy and trust. Intimacy? Another scholar asked. This is another new word. Being close to someone, Nari said. Sharing something private with them. Humans only perform reproductive acts with partners they have chosen. Partners they trust and care about. So it is not just biological, Yura said slowly, her glow dimming as she thought. It is also emotional, social, cultural. Yes, Taeho said, relieved that she was beginning to understand. Human reproduction is connected to many aspects of our society. Yura stood again. She walked to the hologram and studied the image of the developing embryo inside the mother's body. This is incredible, she whispered. Terrifying and beautiful. Your species carries life within itself, protects it with the parent's own body, risks death to create the next generation, and you do this not through obligation, but through choice and love. She turned to face Taeho. Ambassador, I must present this information to the full Galactic Council. They need to understand what kind of species humanity is. This explains so much about your behavior, your culture, your fierce protection of your young. Your Highness, Taeho said carefully, perhaps we should discuss how to present this information. Some species might not understand. No, Yura said firmly. They must understand. This is who humans are. This is what makes you unique. As the Valerians filed out of the conference room, still glowing and murmuring to each other, Jiho came over to Taeho. That went well, Jiho said sarcastically. Did it? Taeho asked. I cannot tell any more. Nari was packing up the projector. Princess Yura seemed genuinely moved by the presentation. That is good, right? I don't know, Taeho said, watching the aliens leave. I really don't know. That night, Taeho received a message from Earth. The human diplomatic corps wanted a full report. Word had spread that he had given a presentation on human reproduction to alien dignitaries. They wanted to know if he had embarrassed humanity. Taeho stared at the message for a long time. Then he began to type his response. He explained everything as clearly as he could. He emphasized Princess Yura's respect and curiosity. He mentioned how moved she had seemed. But deep in his heart, Taeho had a terrible feeling that he had started something he could not stop. The news spread through the Galactic Council like fire through dry grass. By the next morning, every species in the station knew about human reproduction. Taeho woke to find his message inbox flooded with hundreds of communications. Some were curious, some were horrified, some were angry. He met Jiho and Nari for breakfast in the human quarters. They all looked tired. Have you seen the galactic news feeds? Jiho asked, sliding his tablet across the table. Taeho read the headlines. Humans reproduce through dangerous physical contact. Earth species risks death for offspring. Primitive reproduction method shocks council. Primitive? Nari said angrily. We made it to space. We have quantum computers. How is that primitive? To them, any biological reproduction is primitive, a new voice said. Sunho, the cultural ambassador, entered the room. He was older than Taeho, with gray hair and kind eyes. I just came from an emergency meeting with the council coordinators. Taeho, your presentation has caused what they call a cultural incident. I was just answering Princess Yura's questions, Taeho protested. I know, Sunho said gently. But you did not understand the implications. Most galactic species reproduce through simple methods. Budding, division, mental linking, cloning. They have eliminated the mess and danger of biological processes. To them, the fact that humans still do things the old way is shocking. But we like our way, Nari said. It is part of who we are. Try explaining that to a species that reproduces by breaking off a piece of themselves, Sunho replied. He sat down and ordered tea from the food processor. The Crystalline Collective has filed a formal complaint. They say humans are biologically obsessed. The Hive Mind Union cannot understand why we pair off individually instead of contributing to a collective gene pool. What about Princess Yura? Taiho asked. What does she say? That is the interesting part, Sunho said. She has spent the last 12 hours in the station's library, reading everything about human culture, history, literature, art, music, everything. Taiho's tablet buzzed. It was a message from Yura, requesting to meet him immediately. They met in one of the station's observation decks. Earth hung in the darkness beyond the transparent walls, blue and beautiful. Yura stood before the window, her silver robes flowing around her. She did not glow as brightly as usual. Ambassador Taiho, she said without turning around, I have been reading your species' history, your poetry, your songs, your laws. Yes, Your Highness? It is all connected, Yura said, finally facing him. Everything in human culture connects to reproduction and family. Your concept of marriage, a formal bond between reproductive partners. Your inheritance laws, passing resources to genetic offspring. Your Romeo and Juliet, your romantic poetry. Your love songs, all about choosing mates and partners. I suppose that is true, Taiho admitted. We never thought of it as unusual. But it is, Yura's glow intensified. Do you not see? Other species separate reproduction from emotion. The Valerians bond mentally, but we do not call it love. We do not write songs about it. We do not structure our entire civilization around family units. She pulled up a holographic display. Images appeared in the air. Human families, wedding ceremonies, parents holding babies, children playing. Look at this, Yura said. A human wedding. Why do you celebrate the joining of reproductive partners with such ceremony? Why do you cry at births? Why do you have words like mother and father that carry such emotional weight? Because these things matter to us, Taiho said simply. Exactly. Yura gestured at the earth beyond the window. Your entire civilization is built on emotional bonds created through your reproductive strategy. You carry children inside you for 9 months, so you form deep attachments before they are even born. You must pair with partners, so you develop elaborate courtship rituals. Your offspring are helpless for years, so you create extended family structures to protect them. Is that bad? Taiho asked quietly. Yura was silent for a long moment. The council thinks it might be. They are afraid of you. Afraid? Of humans? Think about it from their perspective, Yura said. A species that risks death to reproduce, that forms powerful emotional bonds, that will fight to protect their mates and offspring, that structures their entire society around family and reproduction. To some council members, this makes humans seem unpredictable, dangerous. That is ridiculous, Taiho said. We are not dangerous. We are just trying to survive, like everyone else. Are you? Yura turned to face him fully. I read about your wars, Taiho. Do you know what most of them were about? Resources for families, territory for offspring, protecting mates and children. Even your word nation comes from a word meaning birth, or people born together. You organize yourselves into groups based on genetic and cultural kinship. Taiho felt a chill. He had never thought about human history this way. You make us sound like animals. No, Yura said gently. I make you sound like a species shaped by its reproductive biology, just like every other species. But your biology is so different from ours that your culture became something we cannot fully understand. She pulled up another image. It showed the Galactic Council chamber. Tomorrow there will be a hearing. The council will debate whether humans should be granted full membership. Some species are arguing that you are too primitive, too controlled by biological urges. Others say you are too dangerous because your reproductive drive makes you aggressive and territorial. What do you think? Taiho asked. Yura's glow softened. I think you are the most fascinating species I have ever encountered. But I am only one voice. After Yura left, Taiho returned to find Sunho, Jiho, and Nari waiting for him. A new person had joined them, Hana, a human journalist who had been covering the diplomatic summit. I heard about the council hearing, Hana said. She was young, with sharp eyes and quick hands that were always typing on her tablet. This is bad, Taiho, really bad. I am getting messages from Earth. People are angry. They say the council is discriminating against us because of our biology. They are, Jiho said bluntly. Calling us primitive, dangerous. We made it to the stars just like they did. We need to respond, Sunho said. We need to defend humanity. Show them that our way of reproduction is not a weakness. How do we do that? Nari asked. Sunho looked at Taiho. You started this. You will have to finish it. You will speak at the council hearing. You will explain humanity to them. Taiho felt the weight of Earth pressing down on him. Billions of humans waiting to be accepted into the galactic community. All depending on him to find the right words. I am a biologist, he said weakly, not a diplomat. Right now, Sunho said, humanity needs a biologist more than a diplomat. We need someone who understands what makes us human, what makes us special. That night, Taiho sat in his quarters and stared at a blank screen. He was supposed to write a speech, words that would convince ancient alien civilizations that humanity deserved a place among the stars. No pressure. His tablet buzzed, another message from Princess Yura. I believe in you, Ambassador Taiho. Show them what I see in humanity. Show them why being human is something wonderful, not something to fear. Taiho looked out his window at Earth. Somewhere down there, parents were holding their babies. Children were being born. Families were having dinner together. People were falling in love, making promises to each other, building lives together. All of it connected to the simple biological fact that humans needed each other to create the next generation. Maybe that was not a weakness. Maybe somehow it was humanity's greatest strength. Taiho began to type. The Galactic Council chamber was enormous. It had seats for representatives from 300 different species. Every seat was filled. Taiho stood in the center of the circular room, feeling very small and very human. Above him, the council leadership sat on a raised platform. There was the eldest, a being so old that it existed as pure energy in a containment field. Next to the eldest sat representatives from the 12 founding species of the council. Princess Yura was there too, representing the Valerian Empire. Human Ambassador Taiho, the eldest's voice echoed through the chamber. It spoke in a language that the translation devices converted to something Taiho could understand. You have requested the opportunity to address the council regarding humanity's application for membership. The council has concerns about your species' biology and culture. You may speak. Taiho took a deep breath. Behind him, projected on the walls, images appeared. He had spent all night preparing this presentation with Nari, Sunho, and 2 new arrivals from Earth, Do-Yun, a philosopher, and Minji, an evolutionary biologist. Thank you, honored council, Taiho began. His voice was steady, even though his heart was pounding. I am here to address your concerns about human reproduction. But I want to start by telling you what human reproduction actually is. He gestured, and an image appeared. It showed a timeline of evolution, from simple cells to complex organisms. 4 billion years ago, life began on Earth. It started simply with cells that divided. But then something changed. Sexual reproduction evolved. It was not efficient. It was complicated and risky, but it had one advantage: genetic diversity. Minji's voice came through the speakers. She was broadcasting from Earth, adding her expertise. Sexual reproduction creates offspring that are genetically unique. Every human is different from their parents, different from their siblings. This diversity made us adaptable. Another image appeared. It showed Earth through different ages. Ice ages, warm periods, changing climates. Earth was not an easy planet, Taiho continued. The climate changed. Diseases spread. Predators hunted us. But because every human was genetically different, some of us survived every challenge. The survivors passed on their genes. We evolved faster than species that simply cloned themselves. A crystalline representative spoke up, its voice like wind chimes. But you could have moved beyond biological reproduction once you became intelligent. Why did you not? We tried, Taiho said honestly. Humans have invented artificial reproduction. We can create babies in laboratories. We can modify genes to prevent diseases. But most humans still choose natural reproduction. Do you know why? The chamber was silent. Because it is not just about making babies, Taiho said. It is about connection. New images appeared. Human families. Parents with children, elderly grandparents holding tiny infants. Doyen's voice joined the broadcast. Human reproduction requires two people to make a choice, to trust each other, to commit to raising a child together. This created something unique, the family unit. Not just a parent and offspring, but a network of relationships. Grandparents, siblings, cousins, aunts, uncles, all connected by genetic bonds and emotional choice. But that is inefficient, another council member protested. Why involve so many individuals in raising offspring? Because human babies are helpless, Nari said, her voice clear and strong. They cannot walk for a year, cannot feed themselves for years, cannot survive alone for over a decade. One parent cannot do it alone. So humans evolved to cooperate, to share resources, to help each other raise children. Taiho saw understanding beginning to dawn on some faces. That is the key, he said. Human reproduction is inefficient. It is dangerous. It takes a huge investment of time and resources, so we learned to work together. We formed communities. We created rules to protect children and support parents. We developed language to teach our children everything they needed to know. He gestured, and a new image appeared. It showed human achievements: art, music, architecture, spacecraft, medical technology. Everything you see here came from our need to cooperate, Taiho said. We built civilizations to protect our children. We invented medicine because pregnancy was dangerous. We created education systems because our young needed years of teaching. We developed ethics and laws to ensure fairness in our communities. Princess Yura spoke for the first time. The Council's concern is that humans are controlled by reproductive urges, that you are aggressive and territorial because of your biology. We are, Taiho admitted, and murmurs rippled through the chamber. But we are also aware of it. Humans studied their own biology. We understood that our instincts were not always helpful, so we created cultures and laws to guide our behavior. We chose to be better than our instincts. Minji continued. Human wars often started over resources and territory, yes. But humans also created peace treaties, international laws, and organizations dedicated to cooperation. We recognized our own aggressive tendencies and worked to overcome them. You are saying your weakness became your strength? The eldest asked. Exactly, Taiho said. Look at the other species in this council. The crystalline collective buds off perfect copies. They never need to cooperate because each individual is self-sufficient. The hive mind union shares one consciousness. They cooperate automatically. The Valerians link minds and create offspring in hours, quick and safe. He paused, looking around the chamber. Humans do not have those advantages. We are born helpless. We need years to mature. Our reproduction is slow and dangerous. We should have gone extinct 1,000 times. But we did not. Because we learned to work together. We learned to love each other. We learned to sacrifice for the next generation. This word love, a floating entity asked. You have mentioned it several times. Define it. Taiho smiled sadly. I cannot. Not fully. Love is choosing to care for someone even when it is inconvenient. Love is a parent staying awake all night with a sick child. Love is partners supporting each other through difficulty. Love is grandparents sharing their wisdom. Love is what makes humans protect each other. He brought up one final image. It showed Earth from space, but superimposed over it were glowing lines, communication networks, trade routes, cultural exchanges. This is humanity now, Taiho said. 7 billion individuals, all different, all unique. We argue, we disagree, we have different cultures and beliefs, but we are all connected by this simple truth. We need each other. Our biology made us dependent on cooperation. Our weakness forced us to become our best selves. The chamber was completely silent now. You ask if humans are safe to join the galactic community, Taiho said. I say yes, because we understand the value of cooperation. We know what it means to protect the vulnerable. We have spent thousands of years learning to overcome our aggressive instincts. We are not perfect, but we are trying. Every day, we are trying to be better. He looked up at Princess Yura. She was glowing so brightly that she lit up the entire platform. The council wants to know if our reproduction makes us primitive, Taiho said. I say no. Our reproduction made us human. It made us empathetic. It made us creative. It made us survivors. Yes, we do things differently than you. But different is not dangerous. Different is just different. He bowed to the council. Thank you for listening. As Taiho returned to his seat, the chamber erupted in discussion. Aliens spoke to each other in dozens of languages, their translation devices creating a symphony of sound. Jiho leaned over. That was incredible. Was it enough? Taiho asked. I don't know, Sunho said, but it was honest. It was true. That is all we can give them. The eldest called for order. The council will now vote on humanity's membership application. Those in favor? Lights began to appear throughout the chamber. Blue for yes, red for no, yellow for abstention. Taiho held his breath and watched the lights multiply. The voting lights stopped appearing. Taiho counted them with his heart in his throat. Blue lights outnumbered red lights, but not by much. The yellow lights of abstention were scattered throughout the chamber. The eldest's voice rang out. The council has voted. Humanity is granted provisional membership status for a period of 5 Earth years. During this time, humanity will be monitored and evaluated. At the end of this period, a final vote will determine full membership. It was not the victory Taiho had hoped for, but it was not a defeat either. Around him, the human delegation let out breaths they had been holding. Provisional membership meant humanity could trade with other species, share technology, and participate in council discussions. It was a beginning. Princess Yura stood from her seat. The Valerian Empire would like to make a statement. The chamber quieted. The Valerians were respected throughout the galaxy. Their words carried weight. I have spent many days studying humanity, Yura said, her glow steady and bright. I have read their history, their literature, their science. I have spoken with their ambassadors, and I have come to a conclusion. Humanity is not a danger to the council. Humanity is a gift. Murmurs spread through the chamber. They show us a different way of being, Yura continued, a way based on cooperation born from necessity, on love born from biological dependence, on strength born from weakness. I believe we have much to learn from them. Therefore, the Valerian Empire formally requests permission to establish a cultural exchange program with Earth. Taiho's eyes widened. A cultural exchange with the Valerians was a huge honor. Furthermore, Yura said, looking directly at Taiho, I personally request permission to visit Earth. I wish to observe human society and culture firsthand. The eldest considered this. Such a visit would be unprecedented for a member of the Valerian royal family. Are you certain, Princess? I am certain, Yura said firmly. 6 months later, Taiho stood in the arrival terminal at Seoul Spaceport and watched Princess Yura's ship descend from the sky. She had insisted on a small delegation, just her and 2 attendants. She wanted to experience Earth as normally as possible. Yura emerged from her ship and looked up at the blue sky. Earth's sun made her shimmer like a pearl. "It is warm," she said, surprised. "You visited us in winter," Taiho said, smiling. "Welcome to Earth in summer, Your Highness." Over the next weeks, Taiho guided Yura through Earth. They visited hospitals where babies were born. Yura watched through an observation window as a human woman gave birth. She saw the pain, the effort, the danger. And then she saw the moment when the mother held her baby for the first time. The look of pure love and joy on the woman's face. Yura's glow dimmed until she was barely visible. She was crying, Taiho realized. Valerians cried light instead of tears. "She almost died," Yura whispered, "but look at her face. She is happy." "Because she has her child," Taiho said softly. They visited schools where human children learned and played. Yura watched families eating dinner together, talking and laughing. She attended a human wedding and saw 2 people promise to spend their lives together. "You make it beautiful," Yura said at the wedding reception. "This necessity of yours, this biological requirement. You have turned it into something sacred." "It is sacred to us," Taiho agreed. But it was the visit to Taiho's family home that changed everything. His parents lived in a traditional house outside Seoul. His grandmother lived with them, and his sister Sora had brought her 3 children for the visit. Yura met 3 generations of one family. She watched Taiho's grandmother hold her great-grandchildren. She saw Taiho's mother and father work together in the kitchen, finishing each other's sentences after 40 years of marriage. She played with Taiho's nieces and nephews, who were fascinated by the glowing alien princess. That evening, they sat on the porch and watched the sunset. Taiho's family had gone inside to prepare dinner, leaving Taiho and Yura alone. "I understand now," Yura said quietly. "This is what you were trying to explain to the council. Family is not just about reproduction. It is about connection across time. Your grandmother carried your mother inside her body. Your mother carried you. Now your sister carries the next generation. You are all linked, body to body, life to life, across the years." "Yes," Taiho said, "that is family." "Valerians do not have this," Yura said. "We create offspring, but we do not carry them. We do not risk our lives for them. We do not form these deep bonds. Our children are educated by the collective. They are competent from birth. But they do not have what your nieces and nephews have. They do not have a grandmother who tells them stories. They do not have parents who would die to protect them." She turned to Taiho, her golden eyes reflecting the sunset. "You were right in your speech. Your weakness made you strong. But it is not just that. Your vulnerability made you kind. Your dependence made you loyal. Your biology made you human, and being human is something precious." They sat in comfortable silence as the stars began to appear. Finally, Yura spoke again. "I want to help humanity. When I return to my empire, I will establish the Human Understanding Initiative. I will teach other species what I have learned. That different is not dangerous. That humanity's way of life has value." "Thank you, Your Highness," Taiho said. "Call me Yura," she said. "I think we are friends now. Do humans not use first names with friends?" Taiho smiled. "Yes, yes, we do. Thank you, Yura." 1 year after the council vote, Taiho stood once again before the Galactic Council. But this time, he was not alone. Princess Yura, he corrected himself, stood beside him. She was presenting her research on human culture. "Over the past year," Yura said, "I have lived among humans. I have studied their families, their communities, their societies, and I have learned that what we thought was primitive is actually sophisticated. What we thought was weakness is actually strength. What we thought was danger is actually dedication. She brought up images from her time on Earth. Human parents with their children, teachers with students, doctors caring for patients, friends supporting each other. Humans build bonds that last a lifetime, Yura said. They care for their elderly. They protect their young. They support their communities. All of this stems from their reproductive biology. Because human babies are helpless, humans learned compassion. Because human reproduction requires partners, humans learned cooperation. Because human pregnancy is dangerous, humans learned to value life. She looked around the chamber. I propose that the Council not just accept humanity, but celebrate it. We have spent millennia optimizing our reproduction, making it efficient and safe. But in doing so, perhaps we lost something. Perhaps we lost the deep connections that humans have. The willingness to sacrifice for others. The understanding that we are all vulnerable and need each other. The chamber was silent. Then, one by one, species began to stand. The crystalline collective, the hive mind union, even the floating energy beings. They stood in respect. The eldest spoke. Princess Yura has given us much to consider. I call for a new vote on humanity's status. All in favor of granting humanity full membership immediately? This time the chamber flooded with blue light. The red lights were few and scattered. The yellow lights of abstention had all but disappeared. It is decided, the eldest declared. Humanity is granted full membership in the Galactic Council, effective immediately. Welcome, people of Earth. The human delegation erupted in cheers. Jiho grabbed Taiho in a hug. Nari was crying happy tears. Sunho was already on his communication device, calling Earth with the news. But Taiho looked at Yura. She was glowing brighter than he had ever seen her, her happiness visible to everyone. "Thank you," he said. "Thank you," she replied. "You taught me what it means to be human. Now I understand why it is something worth protecting." Later, after the celebrations had died down, Taiho found himself alone on the observation deck. He looked out at Earth, that blue marble in the darkness. Home. His communicator buzzed. It was a message from his mother. "We saw the vote on the news. Your father and I are so proud. Your grandmother wants to know when you are coming home for dinner. The children miss their uncle." Taiho smiled. Home, family, connection. These were human things, born from their strange, inefficient, dangerous method of reproduction. And he would not change them for anything. Footsteps approached. Yura joined him at the window, looking at Earth. "It is beautiful," she said. "Your world, your people." "Yes," Taiho agreed. "It is." They stood together in silence, a human and a Valerian, watching the planet where humanity had learned what it meant to be human, where weakness had become strength, where biology had become culture, where necessity had become love. And Taiho thought about all the children being born on Earth at that moment. Human babies, helpless and small, carried inside their mothers' bodies for 9 long months, entering the world in pain and risk and danger, being welcomed by parents who would die to protect them. It was inefficient, it was complicated, it was very, very human. And now, thanks to Princess Yura, the galaxy finally understood that this was not something to fear or pity. It was something to celebrate, because humanity had taken their greatest vulnerability and turned it into their greatest gift. The ability to love so deeply that they would risk everything for the next generation. That was the human way, and it was a way that would now spread across the stars, teaching the galaxy what it meant to be truly connected to each other, one family at a time.